What giving up relationships for business goals teaches you. I don't know if some people are able to better merge their business and relationship interests. I want to explain why I found it difficult and what it taught me, and also how I think maybe it can be better reconciled, hopefully, if other people are able to do it. And for me, the people that I had good relationships with were not the people that were interested in the same things that I was in business and in other areas. And I think I'm curious to the reader, like as you look at the people that you're close to in your life, are you close to them because they're interested in a lot of the same things that you're interested in? Or are you, like I was, you just have good relationships with them independent of the fact that you're interested in different things? So let me give you a couple of examples. Like when I was married, I felt like my wife was my soulmate. I was married for a long time. And anything that she was interested in, I was interested in. So every night I would watch her Star Trek, the Next Generation episode. And it didn't matter if we had seen the same episode 4 or 5 times. Just the fact that I knew that she liked it so much. I mean, it wasn't a bad series, but to me, the idea was that if you love somebody, then their interests become your interests. Not that you lose your own interests, but that you just want to be close to that person because you love them as a person. And so you naturally become more interested in what they're interested in is an expression of your love. And that was kind of gratifying for a lot of years, not only in marriage, but in family and other things where I loved the people, but I wasn't really interested in the same things that they were. But over the years, I started to, not in any one specific relationship, but maybe a little bit more overall, feel disappointed in myself because I felt like I had good relationships, but I was missing out on my dreams because I could more easily merge into the interests of other people than they could into mine. And I think that I would feel resentful because I would feel like I'm spending all this time and effort being interested in what you're interested in. But then when I try to share the things that I'm interested in, there's not a lot of receptivity there, and it drives more distance in the relationship. So I learned to be a little bit more personal in my podcast by losing a race for governor. And I want to explain that, why I'm starting to become a little bit more personal in my podcast. Because when I first ran for governor, I felt like people that run for governor, they must be so knowledgeable. And they're knowledgeable about how government operates to a degree, the people that usually win, or they have a lot of business experience, but they're not necessarily more knowledgeable in terms of like innovation, in terms of like what's going to move things forward. And I apply this to relationships with the podcast now because I think there's like kind of like a simple standard of like what works in relationships, what works in podcasts, and what works in relationships. It's not exactly the same, but I think there's a little carryover there. So I'll use an example. A guy like Donald Trump is not a standard politician, but he's still very popular among a certain crowd because he taps into a feeling that is more mainstream. A guy like Andrew Yang is more innovative, and he kind of makes people think more, and he kind of like comes up with ideas that have never been, mainstream in politics before. But he has a hard time, cracking a certain percentage because he is out of the ordinary. And I don't mean out of the ordinary in a bad way. I just mean out of the mindset that a lot of people are thinking of as a standard political answer. And I think there's a lot of people like that in life, like in business and in relationships. A lot of times certain things are expected. And I think for me, after like decades of like really just trying to kind of more fit in and show people that I love them and have good relationships that way, that I kind of like started a little bit moving more towards the opposite, realizing that as I was helping my relationships, I was actually hurting myself. I was hurting my soul because I was going through life and getting more towards the end of my life and not really making as much progress on my goals because the sacrifices I was making in terms of my interest and my time was not being reciprocated. So I don't know if I was just picking the wrong people or whether I wasn't able to navigate those relationships in the right way. or whether it's just, frankly more difficult, if not impossible, to find people that you feel close with and people that share all your interests or a lot of your major interests at the same time. That's why I'm interested in what other people think. So in terms of the sacrifices and what I learned by going in the opposite direction, so the last maybe 5 or 10 years, maybe the last 3 to 5, 7 years, I've kind of gone a little bit more the opposite, that I've not really totally distanced myself, but I spent more time on myself if the people that I'm close to are not willing or able to be interested in some of the things that I'm interested in. Like I mentioned, ran for governor, a lot of people didn't support it, that I was close to. It's not that they sabotaged it, but they're just like, well, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And I've run into a lot of people in life that are kind of like, I'll do my thing and you do your thing. And I always felt like that was normal, but I don't feel like that's normal as much anymore, because if I want to accomplish a lot of my goals, how can I spend all my life around people that are not interested? Like I always had the feeling that if I love you, then I'm interested in what you're interested in. But a lot of people don't have that. At least that I've encountered. They have more of the kind of thing that like, I'm interested in what I'm interested in, and if you're interested, kind of like a take it or leave it type thing. I don't know if that's your experience also. So I guess I kind of copied that a little bit, not totally take it or leave it, but that I could spend time in relationships, but I have to find enough time to nurture myself, and enough time to do the things that I want to do, and enough time to look for the people that might potentially be easy. Like they say, the Bible says you can't put new wine in old wineskins, and I think emotionally, if all your time and energy and psychic energy is locked up into people that, don't support your goals and your dreams, then sometimes you have to take a step back to allow the universe to free yourself up a little bit. It doesn't mean that you're still not close with those people, but you have to have enough time and energy to be open to pursuing the things that you want to pursue, and also, allowing other people to come into your life that are interested in those things. So I think that there's been like a lot of guilt, because I feel like kind of like, who am I to like be a little bit distant from people that I really do care about, just because I want to pursue the things that I want to pursue. I think some of that guilt, is not healthy, because I think that I'm too much of a people pleaser, that I feel like if I'm just doing my own thing, that I'm being overly selfish, because I never liked it when other people did it. So like, if I don't like it when other people are doing it, why am I doing it? I still try to balance. I still try to like, show other people that I can be there for them. But at the same time, I feel like it has to be a balance, that you also have to be there for yourself. And I'm finding that I am attracting more people that are naturally interested in the things that I'm interested in. Still not as much as I would like, but a lot more than before. So I think the guilt is part of it. And I think also more is kind of like self-confidence is part of it. That like, when you're always kind of doing things that you want to do, but you're kind of like a little bit more conflicted about it, and maybe the conflict is subconscious, then I think it's harder to have as much self-esteem, because you kind of feel like a little bit like you're selling out. And I think there's a difference between selling out and compromise. Like in relationships, if you love someone, you do want to compromise, because you want to show the person that they're important to you, and you want to be interested in what they're interested in, but you don't want to do it to the extent of where you're selling out. So I think the fact that I don't feel like I'm selling out now, I feel the guilt, but not as much as I did before, but a little bit. But I also feel that I'm proud of myself, because I'm living my life. It's not that I'm just doing the things that I want to do, it's that I'm doing the things that I think are important. I'm doing the things I think God put me in the world to do. I'm trying to make the mark in the world that, like this podcast is another example. Like I have a lot of listeners to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. We just, passed the monetization, but we still have a long way to go. And I never really got a lot of encouragement, to my books and to my podcast, and I've written 18 books. And I feel like God gave me a lot of things to say. Maybe a lot of people will listen to them, maybe they won't. So far so good. But I have to think not only about the people that I'm closest to, but I have to think also about, the kind of legacy that I want to live in the world. So I'm interested in your thoughts as a listener. Do you feel like when the people that you're closest to diverge from your hopes and your dreams and your goals, how do you manage that? Do you feel guilty when you start to break away a little bit? Are you like so into pleasing other people that you never kind of like want to alienate them? How do you deal with that situation?